Idea of what's going on for today's work is essentially right there, as you can see on the bottom here. Let me focus in on it a little bit more for you. That right there is the result of 1 week's worth of work. I went and bought this aftermarket AC kit to install in my truck that's said to have been 11,000 BTU. And honestly, I think it's a lot less than that because it could barely keep the truck cool. It was always on the edge of discomfort, I guess you could say. Wasn't comfortable, but nor was it uncomfortable. Just enough to be at the edge of discomfort. But either way, with that being said, this thing only worked for 4 days, and then that hole that I showed you at the bottom there is basically where the base cracked and shattered, essentially, due to the cheap Chinese steel. So my hope and my suspicions is that if I replace that base with something that's a lot more stable, something that's a lot more hardy, so to speak, that I'll be able to use this AC again. And if that don't work, then that means I'm down $500 for an AC, aftermarket AC, that I just spent a great deal of money on for pretty much, crap. So if you are going to get one of these, my suggestion is to basically change the case, or at the very least, the bare minimum of it, change the base of the case there. Because, originally I was just going to take like an old saw blade that I had and simply put it in a patch, where it'll still be there and just hold it down flat. But before I could do something like that, came to my attention about this right here. I'm not sure if it's going to focus properly, but that right there, as you can see, it's starting to tear, like literally tear. So I went and measured this out. This base right here is 20.5 inches long by 8.5 inches wide. So what I'm going to do in response is essentially replace the base. I'm going to take this off right here, that off right there, and then essentially slip the piece of metal that I went and bought for it up underneath here, and bring it all the way down, and then drill holes in all four corners. And then I got to drill holes in right in here for the new mounts for the AC compressor. And hopefully, once that's all back in place, it'll work again and I can actually use it. Now, the reason why I suspect that if I just replace the base, it'll work again is because it worked twice since it stopped working. The first time was all night, where, fortunately I was able to sleep through the night with AC. And then the second time was on my way home from work, to where it worked for a couple of seconds up until, I started moving the truck again. And essentially, the AC compressor started flopping around. So this is going to be a vlog to essentially show you as I fix it. And then I'll also be doing some work on my dash to clean that up a little bit and make it a little bit more presentable than what it is already. And then this right here is the saw blade I was going to use for the base, like I said earlier in the video. But that's obviously not going to work out. So instead, this is the new base. It's American-made steel. It's nice and solid. It's 1/8 inch thick. And it's going to take a hell of a lot more in order to make that crack, bend, or break, or shatter. compared to that. I mean, that's even worse than the car door skins anymore. And that's all Chinese steel as well. So, welcome along for the ride. Alright. Let's see here. No, that's funny. The box end fits, because it's a half inch. But yet, the open end one side of the wrench, it doesn't fit at all. And I know for a fact that these are standard rather than metric, because of the fact that I went out of my way to buy new hardware. And especially considering that I made sure it was a standard, because standard is a lot cheaper than metric for whatever reason. But whatever. Now that that's done, I should be able to do this. It's gonna be fun. Fun in ways I never anticipated. But now that I got that off, let me show you the back. Now right here is what I was talking about. All that damage that you see right there is from the AC compressor rocking back and forth. So if you are going to get one of these things, mind you, it's probably going to be better for a smaller space. And on top of that, you'll want to basically change out the housing. Take out all the guts and everything before you charge it and make a whole new housing for it. Something that's a little bit more stable, something that will actually last, because this thing basically does not handle bumps very well. Because this right here is an old 9670 Cabover, and I don't have air ride. It's standard leaf spring. So, depending on the application, would depend on how I go about doing it. But on the same front, like I said before, I would still change out the housing, or at the very minimum, the base. Because what I'm going to do with this is just change out the base and leave the housing on there to hopefully, then again, probably going to have to take out the back of it too, now that I'm looking at it, to straighten it out. But either way, point still stands. Change out the base at the bare minimum. So now that I got this bad boy, I'm going to come up here, and this is supposed to be the new base. It's not exactly 100% perfect, but then again, I didn't exactly put the mounting brackets on there 100% perfect either. So, yay. But it's going to work. I can see it, and that's all I need. So 4 right there, 4 right here, and then 3 in the middle for the AC compressor. And I should be able to replace that base. I'm not trying to break it apart, just due to the fact that I've currently got it charged, and I don't want to lose my charge. As far as the coolant goes, and the oil that's recommended for this thing is expensive, like as in nearly $100 and some odd expensive, and I don't have that kind of money. Alright, now that I got that base in there, rather than trying to mark the holes and what have you, I'm just going to make new holes with this bad boy. Now this right here is a hyper tough corded hand drill. It's a 5 amp 3/8 inch electric drill, and it is a total piece of shit. I bought it from Walmart a couple of years ago, and essentially I've gotten maybe altogether about 8 hours worth of work on it, and it's already on its last leg. I haven't been able to use it much, and I'm not rich enough to afford all the battery stuff that people go and buy, with all the Milwaukee tools and power tools and whatnot. And even then, if I had the money to afford them, I wouldn't get them just because of the fact that the batteries don't last me very long. I got another Hyper Tough cordless drill, and again, I maybe got 2 hours of work mostly out of that. And the drill itself still works fine. It's still in good shape as far as that's concerned, but as far as the battery that came with it, not so much. That thing, that only lasts 5 minutes if I ever, take the time to actually charge it at this point. And, I'm not going to sit through that. Just to charge it up like 5 hours for 5 minutes worth of work. So, that's why I tend to use corded power tools, because with the usage that I get out of them, lasts a lot longer than if I was to get the battery ones, because batteries are expensive, as anybody that uses the power tools knows. All right, I think I might actually have to mark these. Well, that's what I get for trying to take a shortcut. And it's not that big a deal anyway. Big deal is finding the marker. All right, after 10 minutes of searching, I have found my marker. And the sad part of it is I walked past it 3 times, and if it was a snake, it definitely would have bit me. That's for sure. If it was a venomous snake, I'd be dead. All right. Yeah. All right. Now I got my holes marked where they got to go. I'm going to go drill them out. I'm going to do that off camera to save some time on this video. All right, now I got the 4 main holes done as far as the base mounted to the bottom right there on the bracket is concerned there. But I still got more holes to put in here. But first, before I can get to that, I need to take this bad boy apart and essentially index my holes for the compressor. And from there, I got to drill those out onto this right here. And then I got to bust this off and the other side off, which shouldn't be too hard. Just a death wheel there, and I should be able to get the majority of it from the crappy welds that it's got on there. And I think I'll take the back piece off and try to straighten that out a bit, so that way it's not looking so busted. But yeah, so far so good. Yay. All right. Let's try to make it a little bit more easy to work with. Better idea.
There is one message waiting for you.
Let's just do it that way. I don't have as much pressure going on those wires that I don't want. And it's a little easier to move. That's for sure. Now, mind you, as I do this video series, I do this in hopes that somewhat takes off. I'm not going to lie, because any YouTuber, that's being honest with you will tell you that they're hoping that people like, their videos enough to keep watching them. My hope is essentially to, get enough views and likes and subscriptions and what have you to get monetized enough where I can be home. Not necessarily to just be lazy, but more along the lines of being able to be there for my family. Because as a truck driver, you don't have to be home all that often. And you always suffer for that in some way, shape, or form, whether it's with your health or with your own romantic inclinations and interpersonal relationships. My son, he's now 5 years old, going into kindergarten. He just started this year, and I think this is his second or third week. I don't quite remember right offhand. But the thing of it is that I'd like to be there for him. I'd like to be able to be there, to witness his triumphs, his failures, and watch as he basically achieves his dreams.